Carter. Hey, Patricia. I see Shirley is an attendee.
Oh, okay. And Michael, it looks like. All right.
And Michael. Okay, still got her.
Hello, Michael. Hello, Shirley. How are you?
Hello, thank you for inviting me to the meeting.
Oh, always welcome. Welcome, Shirley. You've been moved to a panelist so that you can fully participate. Hope she can hear us. And there's Matt. And here they come.
They're flocking in.
Oh, I know. Well, you know, on a Monday night, this may just be like the only game in town. Oh, no. Okay. Katie said she's got like a co-op board meeting, so she's probably not going to be joining us. So we're waiting for Kristen. Give it another minute or two. And I hope everybody received what I had circulated and, you know, something to discuss and just some raw ideas. And great. Who am I sending this to?
My dog is snoring. If it's bothering anyone, let me know and I'll try and move him. He always goes to sleep after a walk.
And I just thought it was bylaws meetings that did that.
No.
Didn't you say that at some other meeting? I can't remember which meeting it was.
Yeah, because I always walk him before the
Yes.
meetings and he likes to sleep at my feet and snore.
Oh gosh. That's so funny.
David appearing.
Oh, David, that's right. Who else? Okay, so we are almost ready. We just have, okay, we'll give Kristen one more minute and then we'll start. And Carter, I don't see that person that you mentioned.
Okay. Yeah.
Obviously, he found out what we really do and was scared away. Oh no.
And then,
1, 2, 3, 4. Who am I missing?
Kristen and Katie, right?
Okay, as I said, I don't think Katie's, she said to me at that other meeting that just Kristen, yeah. But it's already 6:34. So, I mean, you know, hey, Kristen will join us when she's able to join us. I don't want this to run later than needed. Okay, well, as I had said before, I had circulated these some sort of policy ideas for the press and social media. I mean, this starts off with basically the original standard that we have, sort of the I thought it was actually more detailed in the bylaws than it actually is. You know, when I reread them over the weekend, I found that it really doesn't talk about it when we have sort of an unwritten set of standards that, you know, we've always adhered to, or at least officially stated as our policies when talking to the press or to the media in general, but it's not actually in our bylaws. What we focus on is actually talking to entities in the government, not into the private sector, whether it's the press or whomever. And so I felt that, yes, that clearly needs to be expanded and included. And of course, because we live in a world where social media is often the dominant form of communication, especially when you get down to the local level, these were some ideas that I pulled together to give us a footing. Not to say that this is what's going to be incorporated into the bylaws, but as a supporting policy, you know, set of guidelines that are incorporated by reference. So, any thoughts on, and you know, what's missing? There are ideas that need to be fleshed out, but whatever anyone's got to say on the subject.
Susan, can I start? Because I had recommended at the last meeting that we address two different areas, which I think you've done very well here in the guidelines that we're setting out. One would be the press and one would be social media. And I think you've done an excellent job in really framing a great policy for social media, but it's a little bit weak in the press relations.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make a recommendation, which I don't know is if it's implicit in what you've done here or if you want to kind of separate it out. But you start off, and I'm trying to read it from my phone, which is a little bit difficult. You start off with public statements and you state about how it has to be authorized. And then you go right into social media. And I'd like to make a recommendation, if possible, that you insert a brief paragraph here talking about the press so that we don't skip over it. Because in your statement here, you say you cannot talk to the press without being authorized, but you don't say by whom. So I'm just wondering if one short little paragraph here, even if it's only one or two sentences that says press, and says here that no member of the board is allowed to communicate with the press on behalf of CB2 without express approval, and state by whom. That's not in your sentence. Whose approval is required? I think that's crucial in this location, and I think that does in fact justify a separate brief paragraph saying press relations and whose authority is required. Is it the chairperson? Is it the executive committee? Is it the board office, or a combination thereof?
Right, right. No, I totally agree. You know, now it has always been sort of our standard that authorization comes from the chair.
And I agree with that.
Unless someone thinks that there needs to be any change to that, that is what I would include. I would simply make that more explicit, that the authorization comes from the chair.
And I think you might want to put it in a separate paragraph, even if it's a very brief one, so no one misses it.
It already exists in the bylaws, doesn't it?
I think no, what I saw really had to do with speaking, representing CB2 to other agencies or entities of government, but not talking about the press or private entities, non-governmental entities. So that's what really kind of, when I went back and I saw that it seemed to be missing, and I assumed that it was there, I thought, you know, let's talk about this. And I totally agree with you, but I would go further and say that the standards that we use should apply to public statements in general. Yes, the press, but the press also operates social media accounts as well. So you don't want to start separating, you know, too much. You don't want to start separating the two, because anytime that there are statements that are made that to which someone can be attributed or held accountable, we should be concerned about.
And just as a point to this, and David probably has had this happen, you know, can think of circumstances when board members are quoted in the press, it's often sort of implied that they're representing the board's position.
The only thing, you know,
if it's
I
before a
agree.
position's been created.
The
So-
problem, I'm sorry, Carter. No,
Yeah, I was gonna say, sometimes it's before the board even has a position, but it's sort of just repeated as if, oh, you know, Patricia has said that such and such, and therefore it's like CB2 board member Patricia Laria says this, and it, you know, it's implied as if it's a board position.
Yeah.
Taken from a.
Here's three situations that I
I
faced.
just don't think that that's true, though, Carter. I think like having a
Excuse me.
congressman quoted in the paper doesn't equate to Congress having that position.
It happens quite frequently for us in the local press.
Yeah, let me jump in on this. We've had these three separate situations without having to go who did what, but somebody went before the SLA and spoke contrary to our resolution. I never had a problem with someone from the community board going in and saying, this is our resolution. This is what CB2 has said. And as long as they're speaking about a resolution, and once we have a resolution, it's our policy, it's our official policy, and they could be quoted in the press. I don't mind. I never minded that. But I did mind people going and using their past titles. Someone who was a former chair went up to the SLA and said, I'm a former chair and I'm speaking against the policy. That really confused the SLA, asked why they're doing that, especially as a former chair. So I think if you're going to testify against a CB2 resolution, you shouldn't be using any title which would give more weight or gravitas to your statement. That's one thing, besides obviously saying that it's your own opinion. We've had another situation where it passed committee, but it didn't come to a resolution, and somebody went to the press, or went into a public meeting rather, and made it seem like it was a fait accompli as it passed the committee, and they said, oh, you know, 95% of what the committee does is passed by the full board, and so this is what our committee said. That's absolutely verboten. It has to pass the full board, and that's when it's an official policy, and committee votes do not count in terms of talking in public about it and or the press. We had a third similar situation recently where somebody used their title and spoke their own mind, but with the title, it seemed like they were talking about board policy, and we were nowhere near coming to a resolution. We were in the middle of conducting hearings on it, and we were nowhere near that policy. So that's a problem of talking contrary. Now, if that person who I was thinking about, if we had a resolution and it passed it, I had no problem with somebody being quoted in the press and reiterating what the resolution was. I have no problem with that. So that's my feeling about it. So.
And David, I'm with you 100% that probably all, if not all, then the vast majority of what you described is problematic. I just don't think it's a bylaws issue.
That may be.
Yeah, I'm with you that it's a problem. I just don't think we're in a position to regulate the speech of former members. I don't.
No, not former members. We're talking about current. Former members could do what they want. They could do what they want, you know. And
No, I
we're
agree.
talking about members of the community board now.
Yeah.
No
And this
control.
is,
No,
and
I agree with Matt. You know, it may or may not be a bylaws issue, but that's what we're here to discuss. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
what we're here to discuss is the idea that there needs to be policies that are, you know, written out, they're codified in a sense, and that there's an acknowledgement in our bylaws that these exist. And part of the responsibilities of a board member is to adhere to the policies that we set. We're not saying that these policies are actually contained in our bylaws, but just the way we have rules of order and we acknowledge them as a supporting, you know, set of guidelines is the same idea. And I would say that, yes, what David is describing is problematic. If anything, that, you know, the burden needs to be on any time a board member speaks, the burden is on them to make it as clear as possible that they are speaking solely in their, as an individual. Their words carry nothing more than, their personal opinion. You can get into a difficulty though if somebody say, I speaking in my personal capacity, and then decides not to mention, oh, I'm chair of this committee, but a member of the press could say, oh, as a fact, so and so happens to be a member, a chair, or a past board.
And then the speaking for themselves gets lost in that situation.
Well, that's what I'm saying to you,
Yeah.
is that it has to be made absolutely clear, however it's done, that the burden is on the speaker to make it clear.
I mean,
But
here's
that's the
what
price of a free press. I mean,
yeah, but Matt, there is a price of a free press, but all press inquiries that come on board matter should be directed to the board office. And if you're being contacted as a member of the board because somebody knows you,
don't think we can.
you're
say
not.
that.
No, but hold on. This is an important distinction. You are not the representative of the board, and they may be calling you, but they may not understand that nuance. If they're calling you as an individual on something, that's different. But press inquiries as a whole can't go to any of one of the 50 board members. And
especially if we have a resolution and they're talking against what our policy is.
yeah.
It's quite common for someone in the press to contact simply someone because they know this person. And sure, I agree with you. We do not have the right to prevent a board member from expressing a personal opinion. But when the board member isn't authorized to speak on behalf of the board, we absolutely have the right to expect that person to make it clear they do not have the authority to do that. If they want an authoritative statement, they need to contact the board.
And it goes back to what I think I'd said at the last meeting, is that there is a huge difference between what's explicitly stated in a resolution and what captures in the spirit of what most of the press is asking questions about is whatever's not in there. And that translates into a position of the board. And that's where whoever is appointed to discuss that matter, whether that be a committee chair, the board chair, whatever it is, that's the person it understands whatever the latitude of that resolution would allow to be spoken to, not just another board member. And that's typically what the press is asking about. They're looking for more to the story. And that's where that issue comes into play. If somebody says, hey, Matt, what do you think about this resolution that was passed? That's very different than saying, Matt Metzger said Community Board 2's position is this, and this, and this,
Yeah.
So that's,
and I understand. I totally get it. And this is not a hill I'm dying on. Just disagree with you, frankly, on a couple points.
I like that expression.
And we'll agree to disagree. This is the beauty of democracy.
So I want to bring up something that happened to me and just bring it up and see where this is covered. So I was in a meeting with the chair of a committee and myself and a developer. And this developer, who was doing a very, very big project, was reaching out to other committees on CB2. Some of them were informed, some of them had no idea what was going on. And I said to this developer, or the person who was heading up this very major thing that was in front of our board, I said, if you want to have a meeting with a CB2 member, I need to be informed, because I may want to be there, I may not want to be there. And this other person at the meeting said, hey, you're restricting free speech. And I said, no, I'm not restricting free speech. I'm just telling you as a developer that if you want to pull people aside, committee chairs at CB2, I want to know about it before you do that. That's like, I'm setting that up that way. And this other person in front of—
And you were speaking, you were chair at the time.
I was chair. And I said, I don't want you to go fishing at CB2. I need to know what you're doing. And I need to make that decision whether I want that person with me or that you can interview them at all. Because what they were doing, they were lobbying individual members of the community board to their position. And I didn't like it. And then I was accused of violating free speech. And it got a little heated. And finally, I said to this person, when you're elected chair, you can run it the way you want to run it. I'm chair now, and this is the way it's going to be. And everybody left the room, and that was the end of that discussion. And so I don't know, is it I don't know, Carter, is that a restraint of free speech?
That was me, and now I'm just kidding.
No, it wasn't you. Wasn't you at all.
Kristen has joined us.
There's, the difference is when somebody's calling you up as your capacity as a leader in a leadership role in the community board, then you have other obligations and you're not an individual anymore because they're calling you in your capacity in your leadership role, right? And that's where the difference starts. And I don't know where that line is, but I think that you're right, David, that if they're calling up people in leadership positions to try to win them over prior to something being presented to the board, that's really not appropriate. The conversation should be happening. It's like there's this fine line, and it typically has happened in land use and on larger issues where you have sort of a clarification meeting, sort of figure out where the broader boundaries of something are before they come to the board. And that really makes it a much more productive committee meeting. But, the chair of the committee generally has a sense of the committee to know where to bring this in on, so you don't waste a lot of time. And that's very different. And David and I have both very much been of the school that you should never take a meeting alone. You should always have somebody else with you. It's always going to be turned on you that you said something,
Right.
and that's, but how do you codify that into, but this is different though, David. We're talking about the press here before we get
I know. I just
far away.
wanted to.
But I want to say
beyond-
something to you is that what constitutes the press, what constitutes statements, it's become much more fluid.
Right.
I don't think we can get this
You
specific.
can have individuals who have websites and they, when do they become the press too? Or we're only talking about major media outlets that we traditionally think of as the press, people who get press passes. What I want to protect us from is to make sure that people are not, they're not, binding us, or they're not speaking beyond their, authority to speak.
But one of the things, Susan, just to your point, and this is important for us to keep in mind, we're in the middle of a vast change, whereas the media that's covering us is increasingly smaller markets, blogs,
That's right.
where the difference is, in that stuff. But, as newspapers in the traditional sense change. So, right now, the people who probably cover us a little bit more are the Patch, you've got Village Sun. I don't know if the Village or even, operates under that. It's AM New York. You've got Bowery Boogie. You have, like, for a minute there was the Washington Square, whatever that blog, was covering us.
And the Post, which does these little vignettes about local issues all the time.
We also have to remember, because of the unique nature of our neighborhoods and the attractiveness of them, issues pop up. I mean, when you have problems in terms of people, public congregating and violating, for example, the outdoor eating and drinking and stuff, you may get other, more traditional media outlets coming to us too. We don't know. Our guidelines have to anticipate the range of possibilities.
What about what I said, where
an example of something?
we have a resolution. I mean, I don't see a problem with somebody talking to the press about reiterating our resolution.
That's a fact. That's right. When someone reiterates something, they're only restate. If you're restating,
I have no. Carter, you have a problem with that?
No, I'll give you guys an example. Like right now, two things that have sort of percolated up where there could have been some questions, but we didn't see it, or Washington Square Park and homeless, and those are two. The homeless encampments was something that the press could have very easily started calling some board members. And, we don't have official positions on that, but if somebody starts talking and then it's sort of taken out of context, and then that's a whole mess,
Right.
But that's the reality of, I mean, I hate to put it this way, but that's the reality. I mean, that the press can call people up and
but
they
Matt,
can
if they're
answer the
calling
question.
you-
I just think trying to
Matt, if they're calling you because of your position on community board 2, that call should be referred to the board office. That is a difference than if they're calling you as an individual.
You know,
May I give another example?
I don't see the difference. I'm a lot of things. Are they calling me because I'm on a university board or because I'm on community board? You know what I mean? Like,
but then Matt, then it would be our board members' responsibility to ask, why are you contacting me?
I just don't think that
Matt, I understand Matt's position on this. I really do, because you know, we're all involved with lots and lots of different things. Fair enough. But I think that if you're talking to the press, especially something that we don't have a policy on, or we don't have a resolution on, I think you have to be clear that you're talking in your own behalf and not as a member of an organization.
I'm totally fine with that.
Okay, so then that's what Susan is writing, right? Isn't that what you're writing?
Right. And you know, to the extent that, and someone would say, you know, we haven't yet addressed that, or maybe that's a subject that's on the calendar, and invite somebody to come to a meeting.
They have to identify themselves as this is their personal opinion, whatever they say.
Exactly, and I think anything more than that,
reiterating a resolution, and you know.
So if we go back to what Susan has written,
I think that if I was just going to say, I'm in favor of
let Matt finish, Carter. I love telling Carter.
Sorry, no, Carter, go ahead. And
No. I like telling Carter to be quiet. You go ahead and you finish.
No, it's fun. It's fun doing that, and necessary also.
So my only point was going to be that I think that asking people to do anything more than identify, you know, that they are not that they are giving their personal opinion. I mean, the third paragraph under public statements, I mean, I would vote no. I mean, I just don't like it.
Third paragraph
because 2 reasons. One, I'm under the belief, at least, and this is, I think, why we have the fundamental disagreement, and it's fine, that the board speaks through resolutions. And if you want the official version of the board, you read someone a resolution. And everything else is that person's opinion on the board, on the resolution. Right. It doesn't matter if you're a chair. It doesn't matter if you are just providing your opinion. But that's just my belief.
I just want to point out to you.
I have no problem with that.
That idea of referring people is what is expected of employees in our government, in the extent that they receive it's routine both in public sector and private sector. It's like if they're being asked for something that's beyond their scope or beyond their authority, they're directed to send it. This is not something
that is. Yeah, I would argue that's generally true of executive branch. I mean, if we're getting executive branch and agency and authority, it is not true in the legislature.
Okay, but it is a safe it is a sort of a creating a safe harbor, and it is something that is also commonly used whenever somebody works within a larger entity. It's like if you don't, you know.
But I guess the overarching point is that members don't report to it gets back to it's like the chair is not any member's boss, I guess, is no disrespect to you, Carter. You know what I mean? Just like no chair is any member's boss.
They're not a boss, but they have been elected to be.
I'm with you there. I don't know. I just like.
And I also want to say to you, that is a first rough, raw statement.
Yeah. Oh no! I'm fine. We're arguing over details.
You know.
Listen, can I say something here for 1 minute? Can I come in for 1 minute here? I think a point that we need to make And there is a distinction before we have a resolution and after we have a resolution. But however we're going to think about this, in some ways, it's an honor system. And Matt, that's what I believe, that the statement should be as strong as possible. And I'm going to give an example, not from CB2, but from CB1 a few years ago, when I was assisting in holding a public hearing on the future of the South Street Seaport. The press was present. It was a very, very widely publicized issue, and the press wanted something that they could show on television at night, and they were looking for people to talk to, and people were lining up so that they could be on television. And I had to keep reminding them, we do not have a resolution. This is not the official position of Community Board 1 in Lower Manhattan. These folk are speaking on individually, and at some point in the future, we will have a resolution and a position on Community Board 1. And people kind of looked at me like, okay, is that really what you want? It's an honor system, and you're hoping that people will understand, no matter how strongly Susan writes it, the stronger the better, that this is an honor system, and we expect you to follow this as your guideline, whether we have a resolution, and particularly if we don't.
Yes. Carter, please say what you wanted to say.
I was saying you've already written something. Are we adding to this or taking away? I mean,
You can do whatever you want with it. This is a
Valerie
starting.
also has her hand up.
Okay, well, I know, but you were cut off. I was going to say, this is just a starting point for us to, as like a scaffold on which we build our discussion, and we add to it, we subtract from it, we get ideas. You know, one thing that I have realized as we're talking is that really the whole concept of policies, it's two-part. First is the relationship of a board member to the press or to the public in terms of speaking. The second part has to do with specifics, having to do with how we put our statements out through social media, but they're sort of like two halves. I mean, so just saying that. I'm sorry, Valerie had something to say. Please join us.
You're on mute.
I'm unmuted. Oh, I'm unmuted. Hi. I just wanted to say about the whole media policy, as someone who has worked for a media company and has been under the realm of the Condé Nast Communications, whatever.
Umbrella.
Yeah.
Umbrella. Yeah. Of where my greatest fear was having a tweet of mine picked up by the Post in page 6. And as someone who has spoken on behalf of that company before, you know, I think having something, you know, I think as long as you make it clear, which it sounds like is the case here, that you are not speaking on behalf of the board's position, you know, and then referring any sort of, because if somebody wants an official quote or whatnot, which I think was kind of already in there, if I recall, or it's just a known fact, but if that's then like passed on to the chair and the board office, excuse me, I think that's sufficient, because I think with any, you know, there's a lot coming up with the Soho NoHo and whatnot. I'm sure that people are going to get called about it individually as our names continue to get out there, especially for newer board members. But I also think when people are asked to either speak or to give comment on things in general about the city, to always know to couch it with that, right. that you are speaking, you know, I get asked about, you know, I get people interview me about my personal job and what I do and work that I do, but also my passion for what I do on the board. But I'd always say, you know, I always say that, you know, this is all my opinion. This is nothing. This is not a view of the city. This is not a view of the board. And so I think as long as you give people a script of some sort, which sounds like you have someone in there. So I'll stop going on and on, because there's other things I want to comment on. I want to give you the time. So
all right, your time's up. No more comments.
No, I mean, I don't think we're we're talking about really changing so much. It's making it clearer. It's putting it in writing, and it's also, to help remind people that there were so many more outlets out there. There was a time when, not that long ago, it's like you knew who the press was, you knew who the media representatives were, and but now the most casual of statements can be picked up and used. And we don't want our members to feel like it's not just about holding them accountable, it's making them feel like, they should be aware so that they're not being put in a position themselves.
I think it's a good
and
what I think.
We're not in person, like we were before, but I've definitely gotten asked by some of the smaller outlets, like walking out of the room, like, oh, what was the official vote count on XYZ? And like that all need, and I checked in with Carter at the time, and I was like, hey, I got this request, and I learned, I didn't send anything because I was like, I don't feel like that's really my place in my role to send that external information out. I don't know what our policy is. So.
Right.
Yeah, it's that's why all these requests, we shouldn't even just put it in the bylaws. The requests go to the office, and then the office, and that's what the district manager's responsibility is, because half the time these requests are actually for things that we already have a position on. Just to Matt's point, a copy of the resolution, that's the information. They review that. Then if there's something further, then they can follow up back to the board office and who's the appropriate person to talk to. Right. And, depending on the issue, that isn't necessarily chair, it's whoever it is. It could be Bob Gormley, who's just commenting on something. It can, but the board office is this place that generally most, is the origination point for official inquiries to the board.
And I say again, as long as you are not speaking against the resolution, against our official resolution, you could reiterate our resolution to the press.
Well, statements of fact. I mean, a resolution, once it's passed, is a fact.
That's right.
So it's not an opinion. So we're not in that. But I do want to make it clear, these guidelines work to protect our members as well.
Right.
Especially when, those of us, many people on the board are involved in other community, and type organizations as well. And we want to give them guidance so that they feel comfortable if asked a question. They don't have to just say, oh, I can't talk to you. If people say, I know what the parameters are, they have a sense of it, then there actually promotes discussion.
I agree.
So
Patricia has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, please.
Yes, hi, Susan. Should we also put in writing in the bylaws that anyone that has a Twitter account that lists themselves as a member of Community Board 2, that they should list tweets and comments are my own? Should that be explicit in the bylaws? Like you should write that in, that they should write that in their Twitter account? Or we're doing this honor system that they're just, making comments?
This is what we're talking about, what Susan sent out is a policy. It's not the bylaws. So This is the document that the bylaws refers to, so that we could change that as we go. But that's exactly right. As far as what I think you hit it right on with that. And it's the same thing. What Valerie said in the beginning is, I'm speaking for myself. That's what you say to anybody, that you're speaking for yourself, and you basically absolve that issue.
Right.
And that you're not speaing for the board.
And
so you just make that clear, and boom, there it is.
And I think Michael is right. This is an honor system. We do not want to sit there and like play gotcha with any of our members, but the more that we prepare them, and we're aware of what's out there, they're aware of, how they, the types of things that go on, putting guidelines like this in print helps people. you know, so.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah, if the honest system works to a point, I think we need to say, here are the guidelines, and then use your own common sense.
Look, if we have a member who disregards the guidelines and is really knowingly creating an impression that they're speaking and they don't have the authority, that takes it to a whole other level. You know, then you really do have a question whether this person is performing their role as a board member in good faith. And that's a whole other thing, and that may be a basis for saying to reporting somebody and saying, this is somebody that maybe their service on the board should be reconsidered. That's not our judgment, but part of how you assess somebody is like, do they flaunt the rules?
I think your title as a chair or a committee chair also lends a kind of like credibility to your personal opinion that I think translates into, oh, they're speaking for the board.
I mean, I'm not talking about, again, not gotchas, but the idea that,
it's guidelines.
They're guidelines. I think people feel better, and I think people respect the fact that we acknowledge the complexity of the media out there, the way communication has just, morphed into something that it wasn't, even a few years ago, and that, we address it. That's what we're responsible for.
Yeah, this was to another public agency. It wasn't to the media, but no matter. But you know who I'm talking. And so somebody identified themselves. They were a former chair, actually, and they shouldn't have used that in trying to push their own opinion further along the line, because it seemed to have the stamp of being an official, because they were an ex-chair, official community board policy, and it was just all wrong.
But
it was criticized terribly for it.
But we can't, we can't, I think we're dwelling on this a little too long here, this part of the conversation. I think we need to look at this a little more holistically, because we're hitting up on things that we can very easily and holistically create more of a comprehensive policy that if somebody reads it, they have an idea of what we're trying to communicate. And I think that's the important part here, not the specifics. We're trying to create some guidance so that there's no friction among board members on how they share their own personal opinions versus the board versus, everything. So
I think sometimes these kinds of issues, we've all got stories about these things because there simply haven't been policies that have been, guidelines that have been set forth. And when you read them and you go, okay, it's my responsibility to make it clear that I speak I'm sharing my personal opinion, I speak in a personal capacity, that goes a long way towards, resolving these things. So I think, the fact that we have these stories is because there hasn't been a policy.
Okay.
Moving
forward, by the way, I love the social media manager. I think it's time we had somebody doing that. And I think that all boards are going to copy us.
It's too big. This is too big a job to not have a centralized person responsible. And it's too, and the quickness of it, the fact that things turn over so fast, it needs to have somebody who is on top of it.
And who's media savvy, to do it.
Right. But it's, again, the only way we ensure that we're speaking, people are speaking appropriately is if we give them they have an outlet and they say, okay, we know what we're doing with it.
Agreed.
So as I said, thinking about a comment that Michael made at the beginning, it's like the first part, which I talked about the press, that really has to go to, it's really thinking about content and identification, whether it is to the traditional mainstream press, it is to a blogger, it is to any person. And the second part having to do with the management of our social media and our lines of communication to the larger world.
Sounds good.
So, I mean, that's what I plan on doing when I work on this, you know, to sort of take it to the next step. And anybody who's got any specific ideas, especially Valerie, who is our social media, I guess, in-house whiz. Yeah. Compared to me, you are.
I think a lot of people, I mean, I love Valerie, but I think a lot of people.
I'm sure there are. And
Oh, there's plenty of people.
Yeah. But that's why the idea that, you know, you may have a manager, but you may need an extra 1 or 2 or 3 people so that it doesn't become overwhelming, because that's the nature of the social media. It's like people end up, you know, pouring their whole lives into this. They built whole identities on this, and we don't want to take, you know, to burden any one member and saying, you know, that's your job now is to be the manager of all of this. So how we figure that out will depend upon our needs and you know, as we become more and more, you know, adept at using this. But what, Valerie? Your hand is up, or is it?
Yeah. Well, I still was up virtually, so
I know that.
I
like this.
Yeah. No, you know, there's 2 important pieces that I think get left out in talks like this, and you know, I've fortunately had the experience of managing like Fortune 500 to like other big brand accounts back in my day, and there's a community management piece that's a huge part. I know there's a lot of this about what to repost or posting, or, you know, permission to post or retweet certain things or whatnot. But the community management, you know, as the more active we get on these platforms, we're then going to have to kind of figure out the piece of who's going to respond with the link. You know, if someone's like, when is the next, what's the calendar, or just what is that? There's a community management piece, like replying to comments or replying to tweets, or just deciding that that the board doesn't reply. I mean, ideally you would hope that the board does reply to tweets, or, you know, that are not trolls or whatnot, but just like knowing, or just kind of knowing when something needs to get escalated to the board office, or just kind of knowing like that there's like just a little process. It doesn't have to be anything complicated, but just to know, like, if there's people that need information on these platforms, because now there's going to be more posting, just knowing that that's a piece of it as well.
Yeah. That is a really good point, because unlike traditional media and press, you have this two-way conversation that can go on, and you can have, you know, responses and responses to responses, and this can go down a rabbit hole if you're not careful, and it can get away from you. But we have to address the fact that that exists, and we have to have, you know, it's like, do we not, you know, as you said, do we simply not do it? Or if you do it, you know, that's why you know, if you have a manager who is invested with the responsibility of making a decision, you make a judgment call. And that's what we want people to do, is make judgment calls and say, you know, this is something I can answer, or I can answer it to a certain extent and provide certain information. You know, it makes us stronger when we're sharing information, but that's right. Otherwise it gets away from us.
Right. But, or is it something where, hey, these are like the 6 tweets that need information that maybe the staff can answer, you know, that they could provide the links or something, or, you know, or knowing when, you know what, email us at CB2, you know, if it's someone you just need to take it off of a platform, just say, you know, just know, like, okay, at some point we'll need to say, and this doesn't need to be in the policy, but just that person needs to have the autonomy to be able to kind of make those decisions, like, okay, this person, actually, we need to take this off of a platform and into a private conversation or into a DM or whatnot. So I would say that. And then
Valerie's point earlier, what she said when I was walking out of a physical meeting and somebody asked me a question, that's not where you relay what the vote was. Even if you know what the vote was, once it happens, the official notice of that vote is actually from the board office. And also,
the resolution that was on the table in the back when we were meeting then is actually not the official resolution. That is simply what was the committee's recommendation.
Exactly.
So even if the board adopted that resolution, it's still not, because it's not properly written up with the full board vote on it. And so that's why, even though you know what it will be, it's not the actual, and it's not any of our places to give that official vote unless, you know, that's coming from a representative of the board, and that's generally Bob Gormley, you know. Who,
I want to move on, if you don't mind, Susan.
No, go ahead.
I think Valerie still wanted to say something.
I have one more point.
Sorry.
There's a part about original content and where that's like, oh, that's agendas, that's whatever. And then it talks about original content that's from a third party or something, maybe. There's this big gap in between there of, you know, like not every, like, in terms of like being able to kind of syndicate the information about our meetings on these platforms. Like, I know Schools and Education makes their own flyers. I make my own flyers for the reopening working group. So there is this kind of gap of, okay, it's great to have, you know, the text in a status message for these things, but it's also, there is this like graphic component that can be made with free tools that I think that this person should do. In terms of like, when I say flyer, I mean like a JPEG for a Facebook post or etc. So just about.
Okay. Oh yeah.
There's a gap there.
Really raw starting point. This needs to be refined. But yeah, again, I mean, this is just another example of how the nuances and the gradations that exist when you're using these kind of platforms that we never had to deal with. So
yeah.
Okay.
And the only other thing I would say is to maybe put in there something about like new account, like so that you don't have rogue accounts growing, have like CB2's presence. Like there's a LinkedIn page for CB2 that's like unofficial. I don't know if you guys know that.
That's right. And there's also been problems at other boards where people have created the official board, you know, Twitter account, and then refused
took it upon themselves.
And then refused to give the password back when they were no longer in that role.
So yeah,
you know, that's, Valerie raises a really good point. As new platforms come up, the official board's, you know, account needs to be managed by the office. And that actually, you know, even to the point where it needs to be set up by the office and not a third party person that we hire, so that the board always owns the account. And that's happened as well to another board. I just was thinking about that they had hired somebody and they said, no, I set this up and was doing the work for you. That's my account, whatever it was. But just as an example where you can see things can get out of hand if it's not.
Yeah, no, these are all really good points. Okay, I can just see these eager. I know David wants to move on. Michael, this is on the same subject though, right?
Yes, the same exact subject. Let me just frame two things, because I know David does want to talk about this, the social media manager's responsibility. There are two things. We just mentioned one, which is the official CB2 social media platforms, who should be in charge of it. I truly believe, and I agree with Carter, that should be an office function, that in fact the office establishes it, keeps the passwords, etc. But there is the second portion of it, which Valerie mentioned before, and that's monitoring existing other social media sites and responding to that which is placed on other social media sites. That's an enormous job, and I'm not sure how, even with one social media manager and other people assisting, that person can both work on the official CB2 social media platform and at the same time monitor all of the social media platforms out there. I just raised that as a question. I think Valerie made reference to it before. It is a major job, and I think we need to keep that in our minds, what we're doing doing here, the difference between that which we put out officially as our positions in social media and that with which we need to comment when something else is said in a social media platform that we should or should not respond to. I think we need to think about both as the responsibility of the social media manager. It's a very big job.
That's a whole other, wow.
Yeah.
You know,
But it's not as, you know, for people who operate in that realm, it's not as complicated as you would think. And it's generally, you know, the phrasing maybe should just be that the social media manager works with the chair on whatever that may be. Because, you know, one of the things that the official accounts for a lot of the agencies has actually gone to engage the public more by having a bit more light banter or having a little bit more humor in there. And that's been really important because that's how you engage younger people into following your social media, to say, oh, what'd they say? You know, it's so there's a little bit more in there that it's not always as, you know, staid and
dry.
official and dry. So a lot of it's really going to come from the personality of the person who's doing that as well. And so there has to be that some freedom. That's what makes it interesting, you know?
So what, to build on what Michael said, I think there is a lot of work there, but I don't understand why the media manager is posting the CB2 calendar items. I think that it works just fine the way we have it. And I think that's a board function, and it's not a judgment call. And so I don't think that
the board doesn't post most of that stuff, David. The board
Say it again. I didn't hear you.
The board office doesn't post most of that stuff. You're assuming they do.
I'm assuming that they're supposed to.
So,
if they don't, then
I think it should just be phrased that they work with the board office. And so
yeah, but we would not overburden this job, you know. I mean,
no. But the social media's manager is to just basically, as we get our footing on this, is to basically help further these policies. These are policies, not, you know, chiseled in stone, never changing. And as we move forward and you have a rhythm of this stuff as it's set up, the responsibilities shift where, you know, the board office knows, you know, whoever is posting every Monday, you post the meetings for the week, you know, or whatever it is. I mean,
we have a lot of mid-course corrections in the calendar. You know,
that's true. And that's the beauty of this kind of posting, is that you can provide greater accuracy because we have that sort of change.
I don't agree. I don't disagree, but I think the board handles it. Carter may disagree with me, but, you know, they haven't missed, I don't know why you think it doesn't, Susan?
No, I'm not saying it's just another way of communicating.
Yeah.
And I just, you know, it just seems like, you know, we're asking this.
Look, this is, again, these are.
I'll give you guys an example of one of the things that's important, like that the office doesn't always think of, and why you want to have sort of a policy is, let's say that you post something on Facebook about, you know, important calendar updates. You should not be posting anything else for at least a day, because that's a major update, because otherwise it gets pushed down and out of sight if you're the order that you're posting things in. And that may not be like the best example, but that's something that has been brought up, is that you don't want to dilute your own messaging, you know, and that's what comes through if you're posting another group's information, and all of a sudden what you wanted important is moved down in importance.
So you're agreeing with me?
Well, I'm just saying that whatever it may be, there's different platforms, has different.
I understand. I just think the stuff that's rote and mechanical, you know, it should be.
We may decide.
That's what we're paying our office staff to do.
That's right. And you know something, we may find that it's superfluous to have that kind of that material posted, and we focus on other things. But this is something that we learn by doing it. And the more engaged in it, you know, and the more we develop our policies on it, you know, because we don't make as effective use of social media as we probably can. Absolutely. Yeah,
no. Posting on our calendar, not social media.
And as you know, and with the passage of time, and we will have more and more members for whom this is, you know, second nature. It, you know.
Susan, I agree with everything. I was only talking about posting on our calendar. That's all.
That's
Okay.
all.
All right. Well, that's,
One more thing. I'm sorry, Patricia, did you have something to say? Because you looked like you were like itching to say
No,
something.
no. I said what I said before.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. Got to hold these guys back. Okay, Carter, go right ahead.
well, Valerie had her hand up, but David, I was just going to say, when we
Valerie has been up
our
all the
own
time.
TikTok accounts and we're out
Yeah,
there.
I
I
raised it
didn't
again.
say it again.
When
There's
we
too
You
much
didn't put
chatter.
your hand- I mean, it's a really smart technique. My hand is always up.
and we're once we're doing dueling videos put on TikTok, someday and soon we can come up with
I want to see your Tic Tac
And
dance.
you can use it for a recruitment tool.
Oh yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
actually think that linked. I'm sorry, I'm talking out of turn. I'll wait till I'm called on.
No, just talk. It's all right.
Just talk.
Okay. No, so I mean, there's a thing called like a social media maturity model, and obviously, like on day one, this thing is not going to be robust and boom. It's going to obviously grow into either how this
Yeah, for
person
sure.
operates and whatnot, and whether you decide to add on platforms or not. I do think LinkedIn could be a big one. That's where a lot of professionals are, and that's what the kind of people you'd want to attract to the board. So you kind of also need to think too, besides engaging the community, what is the purpose, to how you want to use these for recruiting tools, or for, Landmarks has a lot of images that come with it every month with the packets that we receive. There's interesting things to do. It just requires time. But I would say like there is a maturity model for how you could build up, because
Of course, I don't think we really have any appreciation of what can be done with this because we haven't been working with it.
I agree with that.
It's a learning curve. And you're absolutely right. There are things that we wouldn't have thought of that all of a sudden we can now engage people in ways that we haven't. This could become an amazing recruiting tool for getting, more people interested, a more diverse, pool of applicants interested. This is, it's what we
And then
make.
we could succeed from the borough president's grip on community boards and be an independent organization. Okay. What's that?
David, you said I think if we've exhausted this, David, you wanted to move on to another topic or something?
No, I was just going down the list,
Really quickly, Valerie, the account that you were talking about was LinkedIn, right? That somebody has a LinkedIn account that's CB2.
Yeah, there was like a CB2 Manhattan LinkedIn account. I know some board members are linked to it.
CB2 at LinkedIn.
Huh?
I'm sorry. What did you say? This is a LinkedIn account for CB2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can find it and put it in the chat.
I was just, I just texted Terry Coon to see if she knew about it, and she said she didn't.
Right.
Fine.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that is something, it shows you people wouldn't think, they took it upon themselves to create this, not even thinking, it's like, do I have the right to do that? This is another form of creating the impression that you have an authority to control the message.
That's a perfect vehicle, a perfect platform for the media manager, Perfect.
Exactly. And just the way we don't want people to make statements to the press that, when they're speaking beyond their scope and they're going beyond personal opinion, when you control a platform, you're imbuing yourself with that very same, aura of authority.
I think it's a great idea. I was just trying to refine it and fine tune it,
Yeah, no, that's definitely something that has to be added as, the idea of, owning, controlling, the platforms that we decide to use. Absolutely.
Absolutely. No question. Okay. Are we done?
Oh, I'm sorry, David. I know it's like David's got places to go, people to see. I know it's like,
No.
So here's some trivia. Apparently, our Facebook account was set up by Brad. So just.
Oh.
I thought Terry did that.
No, that was Brad. That was before you.
I was Brad's successor.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
Now I'm going to take his job in Albany as he moves into the borough presidency.
Be careful what you wish for,
I'm
man.
not wishing for it, Susan.
No, I know. Okay, Valerie, Valerie's hand has finally gone down. Thank God. So, we've talked about a lot of interesting things. I'm going to have to incorporate this and circulate something. If there's anything else on these topics, something that hasn't been discussed, something you'd like to clarify, now's your chance.
You did a really good job on this. Seriously.
So, thank you.
Susan, can I ask, what is the timetable? Are you planning to present what we have now to the board, or what is your timetable for moving forward with some of this? Because it's really important.
Slowly.
It is important, but I can't give you a timetable until I've crafted something that I think the group is more comfortable with in terms of its, adequacy, as a starting point, because the worst thing to do is to present something to the board that clearly it's got holes, or it's, it just going to get ripped up.
We have to spoon feed it also to the board.
Well, no, but something, it needs to be something that we understand and that we're well versed in, so that when questions come, we answer them intelligently.
Agreed.
So I think that definitely tomorrow, for example, is executive committee. I will see what the calendar is looking like, when I can schedule our next meeting, and then I will let you guys know. Unfortunately, it looks like there's absolutely no time through the rest of this month based on the calendar as it now exists, because let's see. Oh, there is an opening. It looks like the 26th isn't a holiday or anything, is it, guys?
It's a Jewish holiday.
Oh, it is.
I'm not just teasing.
Oh. I'm just no, not again. We've had enough.
I couldn't resist.
This time of the year, why not? It's like, yeah. No.
I'm sorry, Susan. I just couldn't resist.
To keep this moving, if people are available on the 26th, which is a week from today, we can reconvene and discuss what I put together.
Can I recommend again that one of the things we spend a little bit more time talking about is responding to posts in other platforms that we did not originate. I think that becomes a major issue, and we don't need to discuss it now, but we need to kind of think about that for the next meeting. And the second issue I'm concerned about, again, is the number of people that would be assigned to work as social media managers. So perhaps we can include that in the next agenda, Susan. It might be a difficult point.
Okay.
I have a conflict next week at 6:30. So if you wanted to do it next week, I could do earlier than 6:30.
Well, let's see. If people are available, I don't know. Kristen, 5:30, is that a doable thing? Well, I thought she was on. Maybe she's.
I was just trying to get to my mute button.
Yeah,
Hi.
Sure.
While I'm cooking. So yeah, I think I can do 5:30. So we're furloughed. So I think that's my furlough day. So.
Oh, they furloughed you. God.
I know.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
Okay. No, trust me, it's fine.
Oh.
Right.
Why don't we then say tentatively, we'll put it on the calendar for 5:30 for the 26th.
Okay.
And if people can't stay on after an hour, understood. But this way we can move this forward. That's actually, yeah, good. We're trying to get as many meetings in as we can so that we can, yes, because turning this around, and giving the board something as a whole to work with will,
Wait, which date did you want to do that on?
The 26th at 5:30?
Carter, isn't there a Soho thing that day?
That's going to be the big Soho NoHo meeting.
The Soho presentation will be that day.
Yeah.
That's at 6.
Okay, forget that. Okay, so we do not have the 26th, but I will tomorrow at the executive committee meeting, I'll get a look at October's calendar, and then based on what's available there, I will reach out to all of you with options.
You could do 5 on any of the other days that week because all the meetings are at 6:30.
So if we keep the meetings to an hour, seriously, I think it's fine.
Well, okay, I want to keep them to, I mean, yeah, we're really just over an hour right now.
I'm not saying.
I personally, so that nobody gets cut off, I leave an hour and a half. So if we make it 5 o'clock, let's say next, I don't know, Wednesday?
Sounds okay.
Is that, and if Kristen, if it's too early for you or something, I understand. You can join us when you're able to. Unless, Kristen, you would prefer to do it like Tuesday or Thursday, but any of those days, and Tuesday, Wednesday,
Well,
Thursday next week.
Tuesday's election day. Yeah. Oh, wait, what am I thinking? It's the next week. Okay, yeah,
Oh,
never
sweetie,
mind.
I wish it were
I'm
over.
sorry. I'm sorry to put that out there. I was thinking because I was planning to early vote Tuesday. That's why it's on my calendar. Yes, I can do any of those days.
Okay, so let's just say for simplicity, we're going to meet on the 28th at 5 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay, guys, that's out. If that works, anything comes up, of course, life takes precedence. But this way, we'll have a chance to revisit these things, and hope I will have something that I will circulate. I will try to actually circulate it over the weekend so that I can get feedback on it.
28th at 5 o'clock.
One other quick thing, Susan, that I was hoping you might reference in somewhere in there is that we need to have some sort of reference to style guide from the board, like where the board has a particular way that we do everything. So, you know, we're not there yet, but at some point.
This is okay. I will make a note of that as a future topic.
Yeah, well, I don't even know if we have to talk about it. Somebody just has to do it. Like, what's the logo? How to refer to ourselves as? What's the type font that we use? What's, you know, the letterhead? What's the official letterhead?
Actually, there was something about how I did have a comment about how we address ourselves, and where did I lose it? But something about basically the consistency of our identification.
Right. That's where I had that idea. That's just important because I mean, you know, Donna and I have talked about this. I've talked about it with Valerie. I've talked about it with other people. I mean, when I was younger and worked in the corporate world, you know, you have all these rules that you have to follow in creating, you know, all kinds of things. This is how you do it. And we should have that too. So it's just is different people are, you know, doing things. And that just goes to like PowerPoint presentations or whatever it is, if it's if it's branded with the board's information.
Right. Yeah. Consistency of brand. Absolutely. Yeah, that's okay. I made a note of that.
So we're 28th at 5 p.m.
Right. That's what we're agreeing to now.
Okay.
Can you email Bob Gormley?
Absolutely. I will send out an email when we get off that I will be scheduling, and Josh, of course. Yeah, I know the drill. Okay, guys.
Good meeting. Good meeting.
I think this was quite productive. And unless anybody has anything else, I'm going to say good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Great job.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.